There is no question that the health impacts on diplomats in Cuba have been visible and real. We are continuing to work with local authorities and work with the RCMP to determine what is the source of these sounds or this issue that they are facing. We've been taking it very, very seriously from the beginning, and we will continue to take very seriously the health and safety of all Canadians who serve anywhere overseas.
14 Canadian diplomats and their family members are suing the federal government for $28 million. They used to be based in Cuba, and all of them have been affected by the mysterious Havana syndrome. They allege the government did not act quickly enough to get them out of Cuba to treat their symptoms. The 14 people have been back in Canada for about a year and a half, and all of them are still suffering, they say, from symptoms that include headaches, intense fatigue, memory loss, and hearing and vision problems. Besides compensation, what answers are they hoping to get out of the government? John Phillips is one of the lawyers representing the plaintiffs. He joins me now from Toronto. Hi, Mr. Phillips. Nice to see you. Thanks for making time.
No problem. Thank you.
What led to the exact point that your clients felt like they had no other option other than to take the government to court?
It was a slow build, I think, for them. The delay in recognizing what was happening to them and Canada's admission that there were indeed problems in Cuba, combined with the lack of transparency and the slow and interfered with attempts to get assessments of what was causing the problem that they were suffering from having been in Cuba. So it was a slow and failed response on the part of Canada to really deliver some kind of means for our people to get better.
Was there hesitation to take legal action? Was it really sort of like a last resort?
It was a last resort. It's always a last resort to sue your own employer in the case of the diplomats, and for the families to as part of being members of the public service through the families, it's a last resort. And they were desperate enough that they felt that they needed to do that to bring attention to what was happening, to ensure that there was some response and some movement forward, especially for their children and families.
When you talk about a timeline, and this is something that the statement goes over as well, and that was raised in the story as it came out last night, sort of comparatively, the American government, for example, worked faster. Is that central? Is the timeline a big part of this, basically, that the government didn't intervene, your clients allege, soon enough?
That's correct. We don't understand why, when the U.S. diplomats were being evacuated, our diplomats were being told not to communicate with each other about what they were perceiving to be problems. Why the diplomatic corps wasn't being instructed to leave or evacuate in the same way that the Americans were. All of it just speaks to the need for Canada to have responded differently to this problem and to these public servants and their families that are working in all of our best interests.
It appears that the Havana syndrome still is and was a mystery, like what was causing it and things along those lines. Can the government really be faulted for not intervening sooner if that is the case?
It's not about detecting the cause. It's about identifying that there's a problem and responding to that problem to move people out of harm's way. And that's what we say Canada failed at in this case. And if you look at issues of cause, there's enough there to make you concerned that something is being targeted at someone, because it was only Canadian and U.S. diplomats and their families that were being hit by whatever this was. The injuries that were being sustained were manifest on both children, spouses, and the diplomats themselves. So, without knowing the specific cause, we knew effect, and we knew that we needed to protect our people. The Americans certainly did.
Can you describe a bit of those symptoms for our viewers, just as they existed sort of when they first came to light? And then I note also that part of the allegation is that many of those symptoms still persist now. So what are those?
Well, they do. Dizziness, lack of loss of memory, lack of memory, nosebleeds, all the sort of symptoms you'd associate with a concussion, yet without having a concussive impact causing it. And in the case of some of our diplomats and some of the spouses, they haven't returned to work yet, even after their return back to Canada. And in the case of some of the children, they're doing poorly in school compared to what they were doing prior to their attendance in Cuba.
What kind of an emotional toll has this taken on your clients?
A profound emotional toll. They, again, suing your employer is a major step, and it's a response to a feeling of serious betrayal. So it does impact them heavily, and the hope is that bringing attention to this will get a resolution that will allow them to move forward in good faith with Canada. But that's on Canada to step up.
Speaking of the government, yesterday, Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland, last evening, right after this story came out, was asked about this. I want to play a clip of her response and then get your reaction. Let's take a listen.
In terms of the case itself, I'm not going to comment on the specifics, but I do want to reiterate that I have met with some of these diplomats, and as I said to them, their health and safety needs to be our priority, and they have my true sympathy and concern.
Your reaction to that, Mr. Phillips?
I truly appreciate hearing it. I just hope that there's follow-through. And I think our claim has given a forum for our plaintiffs, their families, to work with Canada towards a resolution to allow Ms. Freeland's statement to be proven true.
Have you seen any willingness on the part of the government apart from that statement, or are you optimistic that they will sort of demonstrate a desire to settle this in some capacity outside of litigating?
Well, having heard from Minister Freeland, I'm taking her at her word, and I'm hoping we could move in just that direction. Yes, I'm hopeful.
And before I let you go, the government says that they are now reducing this diplomatic staff in Havana by half. Do you think, in your opinion, based on what you've seen evident in your clients, do you think that they should pull everybody out?
I can't comment on that. What I know is that if anybody is going there, they need to be fully transparent, Canada does, with what the risks are and what's associated with being in that mission, so that anyone that does choose to go does so in full knowledge of the risks that they're facing.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.